Adventures of Sonic, Episode 66. Sonic Christmas Blast. If this is the technical finale, it better be good. I want to see Scratch and Grounder turn on Robotnik, calling him out. Coconuts get a better life and realize Robotnik isn't worth staying with. And Robotnik will get either killed off or sent to another dimension to never return. But of course none of that will happen, because the show is no guts, and it doesn't take itself seriously in the slightest, and it'll probably end with the status quo, under the delusion that it'll get tons of more episodes to milk its repetitive formula for all it's worth some more, since that's the only logical reason why it would end in the status quo. Every show deserves a proper finale, and this show hasn't given me high hopes for that. Well, let's see how the gutless finale disappoints me. I hope it gets proven wrong, but when I'm expecting the worst, I can only be right or pleasantly surprised. I rewatched the Sad AM finale before seeing this, and it looks like so much better of a finale than this show had. Let's see if this is the proper finale. On a snowy day, some people wait for Santa to appear on a giant TV in the middle of a city. He announces his retirement, which is ridiculous. Is this really Robotnik? Supposedly, the best person ever will be taking his place. Robotnik? Yup. Of course. The whole world revolves around him and Sonic. I like that a robot other than the SSS squad is filming Robotnik doing this. He tells the crowd they'll notice small changes, and Scratch tells the kids to sit on his lap as he's dressed like Santa. Why would he put up with this? I doubt he likes kids. Wouldn't this be boring? Predictably, a kid stands up to him and attacks him. Grounder's told to put him in a robot factory. Wait, what? Suddenly Sonic's talking to a pink Sally who's disrespectfully mute. She is a princess, and doesn't look horrible like in Fleetwood, but this was way too late to introduce her, and for just a 4-second cameo that I bet was all over the ads for this episode. Sonic says that when a princess says no presents, she really means 2 stories full. Tails says that Robotropolis is always dangerous, but the show never bothered having one before. Just cheap Sad AM references that don't mean anything. That's pathetic. And Sonic says that Sally would be more dangerous than Robotropolis if she got mad. We're given no indication of this. Grounder and Scratch start threatening people to give them gifts, and the first victim is super poor. So they have a construction crane steal his house, which I guess will be used for scrap metal for Robotnik. I don't think we ever see his house come back. It was amusing that Scratch tried to prove he was better at saying ho 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 than Grounder, picking him up to do so. And it didn't go on for too long. Sonic sees a ton of robots stealing from people and putting them in something to send to Robotnik. This is super tense and threatening. Why didn't we see this kind of thing way earlier in the show? It was already said that Robotnik loots villages, so why does he need to dress up like Santa in order to do it? The kid managed to escape a robot factory off screen, which is total bullshit, though it's at least not as predictable as Sonic saving him. The kid escapes just so we can tell Sonic what happened to him, regardless of whether it makes sense. At least I find charm in the kid since he has a football-shaped head. The Santa from earlier is a robot who is sitting next to Scratch, and the real Santa was taken prisoner by Robotnik. Then a spike trap is dropped towards the heroes and the kid. Sonic avoids it. He runs up a building defying gravity, and bullshit lands in the vehicle and uses the levers to pick up and drop the robots with the construction crane. This wasn't satisfying. He should have ran up and off a slope to get up there, or spin dash the vehicle to death. Then he wastes some more time by somehow fooling the robots with the disguise he shouldn't have. He says he'll forget the fine if they tell him where the real Santa is. Can't he just threaten them? Wouldn't that be faster? Wouldn't an impatient person just want to do the faster thing? Scratch is suspicious of him, but Grounder pushes him and tells him he's near the South Pole. Well, that's more original than North Pole. At least Robotnik is being a huge threat, using a ton of robots other than the lame sidekicks he has to steal and build for him. People build tons of chimneys for him, and he wants enough chimneys that every Christmas night, every citizen will have to go down them and give him presents. Makes sense. Why didn't Robotnik get a Santa suit that fits?
I was going to send you a Christmas card, but now you get nothing.
He tells the green robot to order SWAT bots to prepare for an attack. Why didn't he have SWAT bots earlier? Again, a cheap Saudi M reference. And Tails is talking as if he's already familiar with them, pointing them out and calling them by name. Those aren't SWAT bots. Icicles fire at Sonic from a cannon, and he runs around in a circle to break the ice and send the robots into the water. Then he goes into an ice cave and makes the robots shoot ray guns at the wall to miss him. He calls out for Santa, and he's here behind a barred door. I guess he was supposed to have been guarded by those robots, but that was still too easy for Sonic. Sonic is told that Robotnik stole everything from Santa. Then it turns out he had Santa's jingle and asked him for Sally's ring. Sonic says this will be the second year that he hasn't given Sally anything. So I guess this episode definitely takes place after a time skip because apparently he's known Sally for 2 years. Whoever has the ring will be able to unlock the secret to speed if he achieves challenges, like climbing an ice peak, as Santa tells Sonic with a mural on the cave wall because apparently, just out of coincidence, the ring Sally gave him just happened to be super important. Sonic climbs a peak and is told to snowboard down an icy cliff, jumping pretty far down at first. Scratch and Grounder find him and lay down a bear trap, and Sonic turns and sends snow at them and sends them into the bear trap. Then Sonic grabs a hang glider that just happened to be there. Maybe the robots used it to get here, but wouldn't they be too heavy to use it as robots? Then Sonic lets his snowboard fall on them. I don't think it'd be that heavy to do that to them. Sonic rides a bike out of nowhere, just avoiding a cliff crumbling below him, and canyon mountains start moving. He jumps with the bike still moving through a small tunnel and gets let into the water, but the bike was still moving through it. This is engaging to watch at least. By night, Sonic is told he won the power of extreme speed. Shouldn't he have had it all along? What padding? Robotnik celebrates all the presents he got, and then Sonic shows up running around the tree and stealing Robotnik's clothes and presents. He runs all over the world to return the presents to everyone. This isn't a proper final plan for the finale because this is a plan that Sonic could have stopped in literally seconds at the start of the episode. Then Sonic gives tons of presents to Sally. Can she talk now? Nope. Well, at least it's kinda cute seeing her being totally mute.
Mistletoe.
Then he uses mistletoe, kisses her, and runs off with her not talking or reacting at all. I think they didn't want to pay Sally's voice actor, but they could have gotten a different actress for her. She's just there as a cheap advertising employee for marketing. It would be really epic if she was actually important in the episode. At least she wasn't rude to Sonic. Okay, at least Robotnik had somewhat of a big plan, because he sent a ton of robots other than Scratch and Grounder to loot people. Though it was already mentioned that he looted villages, and he should have had a robot army other than them from the first episode. Didn't he say that he needed the power of energy crystals to power robot army? Where'd this one come from? Why weren't they there all along? They're also called SWAT bots in a lazy attempt to appeal to fans of Sad AM. Speaking of that, Tails mentions a Robotropolis that we never see since Sonic breaks into Robotnik's fortress way too easily, and Sally shows up too. But since she says nothing and isn't even the right color, they might as well have used a different character. So as a Sally fan, fuck you for doing that. At least Robotnik did have a big negative impact, which was a better plan than last episode where he just transformed a few buildings with a wand. But ultimately this finale was a disappointment. Unlike in Sad AM, and the intended finale of Archie Sonic, it doesn't get rid of Robotnik to satisfyingly take him down, and it's not at the end of a big major plan he has that threatens the entire world and comes close to succeeding. And Sonic has no problem getting into Robotnik's base and returning the presents. So much padding to explain something he could have done without training to begin with. He didn't need training. Couldn't he have just gone super? Scratch and Grounder and Coconuts don't get totally fed up with Robotnik and ditch him like they should, and like the whole show was building up to considering how abused they were. And Robotnik stays alive and on Mobius, so the show ends on the status quo. That's not satisfying, because this way I feel like they could have had more episodes after this just fine, rather than ending on a major change. I don't understand why they even cancelled the show, since it was the safe show and must have been profitable. I guess ABC forced this show to be cancelled too. Why couldn't they just move their Sonic cartoons to a different channel, like Futurama did? I can only assume that at the end of the day, they didn't care about those shows. Not one bit. Because they easily could have kept them going to this day. Look at The Simpsons, it's still going. While this is certainly a better finale than the previous episode would have been, it's kind of predictable since it's a Christmas episode. And it could have been a lot better than this. The biggest problems with Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog are Scratch and Grounder's idiocy and ridiculousness, and Sonic being invincible. I didn't grow up with Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. I have no nostalgia for it at all, so maybe that's why I only laughed from it 5 times watching it as an adult. But I can personally attest to the fact that it might not just be me. Occasionally I had a 5-year-old watching the episode as I was recording and reviewing it, and the only time he even kind of laughed at it was when he saw underwear. And that's the target demographic. And he's very easily amused. This isn't a funny show. Sonic fails at a lot, so it makes sense that it would fail at comedy too. Even in what I was expecting to be the funniest continuity. And that turned out to be Fleetway instead. This show is basically nothing but slapstick, where the characters don't get genuinely injured and stay that way the rest of the episode. So it's slapstick without consequences. That does nothing for me. I've never laughed at the slapstick. I laughed at the occasionally really funny line from Grounder or Robotnik. Like when Grounder said about buying shoes in the afternoon, "That'll be really useful if I ever get feet." Honestly, I just find the show too repetitive, basic, and predictable because it's just slapstick against completely, unbelievably idiotic robots with a textbook invincible hero who honestly makes the villains look more sympathetic, and that's messed up writing. Basic good writing rule number 1 to me is make the villains not the ones to root for. But they're such incompetent underdogs in this show that I end up hating Sonic for being a smug, sadistic trickster who's obviously only keeping the villains alive to keep torturing them. Since it could have easily destroyed Scratch and Grounder's CPUs from the start, and he had multiple opportunities in the show to take Robotnik to prison. Like when he was in bed asleep near him or trapped in an ice cube, and instead he took off. Unlike SatAM with its laundry list of problems, this show only has a few problems, but they're major enough to outclass those completely. Scratch and Grounder are by definition forced. There's no way Robotnik would keep putting up with such incompetent, unbelievably gullible robot minions when they lose against Sonic personally so many times. He would have scrapped them, reprogrammed them, or ditched them in the first episode. Look at how the Archie comic handled them. They went after Sonic for 1 issue, and then they were ditched for good. Because the comic doesn't treat you like a complete idiot who needs to be taught that you have to eat. That was literally a Sonic Says message. They thought they needed to tell kids to eat breakfast, or to not climb into the dryer. I don't care how stupid they are, they wouldn't be fooled by Sonic's disguises every time that come completely out of nowhere, making his victories unsatisfying. So many of his victories are completely unsatisfying because they're just too easy. They feel like even more of an asshole whenever the villains have been a genuine threat up to that point. And usually they're not even that. Robotnik is reduced to a parody of himself, being pathetic, quote-unquote comical, a coward who apologizes when he's caught stepping on grass. And he doesn't even rule one city, let alone the world, when this could have been the perfect opportunity to, like Fleetway, show us how he would rule over people, and not mindless robots. With Robotnik being too pathetic and self-aware of how he always fails and yet insistent he'll win this time, he's literally written like how a fanfiction writer would parody him because of a dislike for the overexposed character. I know, the writers might be just as disrespectful of the overexposed main villain as I am. That's no excuse not to make him a threat in official continuity. And another thing is, Robotnik has a base that everyone knows where it is, and even Mailman could just walk into it. So that's another reason the whole foundation of the show falls apart. All of the militaries of the world should have been sent after that base and completely destroyed it. Sonic wouldn't be his only main antagonist. It kind of works in the games because Robotnik's space doesn't have a set, established one place that everyone should be attacking. You can assume it's hidden. So Robotnik kind of needs to either be hiding somewhere or be a world ruler, so he has so much power that it needs to be Sonic and his friends who are the only ones fighting him. So Scratch and Grounder are ridiculously gullible, incompetent, waste time bickering with each other, and all around should have been scrapped no matter how charming they end up being in spite of their stupid voices. Because honestly, the idea of robot sidekicks like them who lose against Sonic personally just doesn't work. Orbot and Cubot worked because they don't lose to Sonic directly and are assigned to tasks they could actually succeed in, like capturing wisps. And the disguises are bullshit. Where did they come from? Why did they always work, even against Eggman? This isn't Looney Tunes, this isn't Wile E. Coyote, so gags like this don't work when they're ripped off from another franchise for another franchise that sometimes takes itself more seriously. The whole show makes me feel like it's treating me like an idiot, being overly saccharine easy for the smug Gary Stu Sonic. It's not like it doesn't have its moments of brilliance. I love the one story arc with the imaginative Chaos Emeralds. I love that they brought back some original characters, much more than Sadie M did, even if original characters are constantly having annoying voices. And I loved that sometimes Sonic's flaws would backfire on him, that he was a Casanova. Like, it felt like he had a distinct personality. And the Tails was acknowledged as a genius inventor in at least one episode, but he's still worthless in the show. The worst Tails there's ever been, barely doing anything to help, and he's usually just there to get kidnapped. But it's not as bad as Robotnik, where it feels like the writer just hated him. Though I'm sure the writers enjoyed making him hammy. I know the artists enjoyed him, but he wasn't treated with any kind of respect as a character. And if he didn't have the menacing black and red-eyed Robotnik design, it wouldn't feel so off to me that he's portrayed as a complete buffoon. Like, you do not have a villain that's meant to look menacing be not menacing at all. Sometimes too lighthearted can be a bad thing because things are too easy for the heroes and you end up rooting for the villains. Just like in Wile E. Coyote, the show that this show is ripping off instead of being confident in originality. And I feel like this is the only Sonic continuity where characters like Sonic constantly save the day with materials they shouldn't logically have, pulling them out of nowhere because the writer wrote himself into a corner. Compare this to Sadie M, which had Sonic have a backpack to explain where he pulls his ring from every time.